Greetings, humans. I'm Andy, and I'm George, and this is Goof, and welcome back to the Windmill Flow Corpses. Right, so Shadow of Intent has been gradually decomposing my brain song after song in the best way possible. Whenever I think they've reached critical mass with what deathcore can provide, they prove me wrong and they go even further. Mechanical Chaos is probably my favorite deathcore song in the last 5 years, and now we're going into a 7.5 minute album closer title track monster. And I'm absolutely not ready for this. We're never gonna end this debate. It's not deathcore anymore. Yeah, but it's not death metal either. It kind of is. Doesn't sound like Cannibal Corpse. The Green Atrocity is now public, and you have a moral responsibility to check it out. There are a couple of moral responsibilities that everybody has. Go vote, be a decent person, take care of your loved ones, and listen to Shadow of Intent. Yes. And don't fucking die. Yes. But come to the Windmill when you do. Yes. I mean, no. What the hell just happened? Exactly. Oh boy, I'm not ready for this. Okay, who? That's someone. Oh my god. What are you gonna do? That was such a good change. Goosebumps. Nothing out of the ordinary. Choose Rivata. Be like Ben. Okay. What? That's the newest thing from Shadow of Intent ever. That's the most different from anything I've ever seen them do.
Yeah.
That is clearly a sort of drawing conclusion sort of song at the end of an album. That's like watching Piers Morgan debates about wars while on a trip on shrooms. Okay? Where did the shrooms come from? Is it because of all the green aesthetics? It felt like a bad trip. Speaking from people that I've talked to who have been on bad trips, I haven't been on bad trips because I haven't been on any trips. The shroom kind. I have been on actual trips where you go to somewhere. It did not feel like a trip to me because trips are not real. They are sensory experiences that happen in your head. Yes, hence the Piers Morgan debate. That one is real. And it's about this sort of atrocities. I'm sorry for plugging Piers Morgan in there. I just needed a recognizable face. Chill. Okay. So, trying to analyze this shit with this thing is an awkward and uncomfortable experience.
Yes, it is.
But the song was great.
Yes.
I feel like the songs are sometimes so great that we have to make each other miserable afterwards to compensate. Yeah. To go back into our regular level of everyday cynicism and be ourselves. Okay. There was one thing in the lyrics that completely flipped me, which said it near the end. The realization that you're not one of them is paralyzing or is in some way shocking. I don't remember exactly what it said. It's like the not in that sentence fucks me up. What you'd expect to be shocking to people is the realization that they have been complicit in something atrocious. How do you read that? The realization you're not one of them is this fact that the evil tyrants, politicians most likely, but not only, appeal to your sense of belonging and group identity and get you trapped in this sense of collective identity so that you vote for them. And then when they start doing their thing, you're very likely, after you've maybe even voted for them, gonna end up one of those being cast aside. You were never one of them. You were never one of the ones you supported in a way. Yeah. Okay, that's really cool. And then you are now fucked. Yeah. You know, about a lot of the political things that are happening now in the world, my primary experience is confusion and that I don't know who the good guy and who the bad guy is, and at the same time having the feeling like everyone is the bad guy. But in my own country, it is pretty clear for me who the good guys and who the bad guys are, and I'm voting for the good guys. Yes. So that I'm feeling pretty comfortable about. Yes. And I am not fucked. Yet. We have yet to see. The whole song is a very overt call out and criticism to, I would say, rise of extremism. Maybe with regards to things that are going on in the world right now, or just with the concept as a whole. I feel like it's very broadly applicable. Yeah. It talks about like tyrants driven by opulence in their mansions of privilege, sort of like brainwashing the masses and then basically breeding war. He articulated it a lot better than I can. And he used a lot of filth and anger and disgust in there. And you can tell that it's almost personal for him in how it comes across. I feel like Shadow of Intent is one of those bands that's managed to do essentially what Neobliviscaris has managed to do, which is use very big, fancy, poetic words and not cringe. Right? Yeah, but Neobliviscaris does it in a more romanticized way. Yeah, totally. It's a different Shadow of Intent is great at making disgust poetic. Like things that are disgusting, that are violent, aggressive, in your face. Yeah. Things like that. And then wrap them in this aura of like tragedy and horror, almost like poetic horror. I think Cattle Decapitation is the only band that can nail this sort of aesthetic equally well. Yeah. Like I got a similar feeling when listening to Death Atlas and to Solastalgia off the new album. So, music though. That intro had me thinking it was gonna hit twice before it actually hit. Because it builds, and it's like it's building towards when the riff is gonna hit, but then first you get like another layer of orchestra and backing vocals and thing, and it gets thicker. And then you get like that electronic sort of percussion building up even more. And every time one of those layers came, I thought that's the moment when the riff just hits. But no, you just get more suspense and more suspense and more suspense. And then when it really hits, you can tell it's coming.
Yeah.
And then it goes straight into the blasting. And this is why I keep saying that they're not a death metal band. Now they're using death metal elements, but they're also using deathcore elements, and they're in a gray area. That thing when it hit, the blast beat you had going on and with the rolling guitar run was totally deathcore.
They're not in the gray area, they're in a green area.
Green is the new gray.
I have just disrupted his very coherent reviewing flow for that part.
Yes, so green is the new gray, and I shall continue my flow because I did not lose my thought. So that intro, that first riff was 100% deathcore. And a lot of the times when it drops into like a breakdown, and you have the patterns where you got the China going on and the sliced kick patterns, that's also very deathcore. Yes. You're not gonna find that in any old school death metal like Suffocation, Obituary, Deicide, Cannibal Corpse. If you will find droppy things like that, it's gonna be more of the slamming death metal variation where it starts like going into this descending breakneck sort of pattern.
I think that's where a lot of our disagreements on the boundary between deathcore and death metal comes along. I think you feel like a lot of these elements that you've just described as deathcore tend to be absent in death metal, and I don't see it that way.
Okay, so what death metal bands do you think have these elements?
Suffocation?
I disagree. Suffocation is something else.
Ingested?
Ingested is more likely. The brutal death metal is closer to deathcore than the old school, like traditional death metal.
Those are some that come to mind.
Yes.
I'm right and you're wrong.
You're wrong and I'm right.
And then they also have in this song, a lot of the like synchronization of vocals and rhythms.
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
It's an old thing in a way that a lot of old school bands have done it, but I feel like it just feels unique when Shadow of Intent does it, right? The other thing that was really brilliant about the vocal delivery in this one is that it was coherently incoherent, in the sense of the lyrics are extremely well articulated, but they're very complex and delivered so fast that you can't keep track. So there is a message in them that we're going to have to go back and follow, but the initial experience is also very coherent because there's just this cascade of horror that's coming at you, which is very expressive of how I assume it feels when something like a war breaks out in your area or things like that. And all of a sudden you're like, what the fuck? And I didn't see this coming. And maybe you even participated at it without realizing. And then there's this whole downhill spiral of everything just goes to hell.
Yeah.
The one Chris Weisman vocal line was probably the most epic melodic moment I've heard in the new songs from Shadow of Intent so far. There were a lot of the orchestral atmospheric pauses, connecting bits, and you had the backing female vocal, which I don't know who it is, but I'm willing to bet it's someone.
Yes, that's not a sample.
I don't think that can be a sample. It sounds too realistic. You had that make a comeback closer to the end, which was really, really cool.
Yeah.
And
I think it had several comebacks, actually. I think we could hear it through the song, too, although it wasn't as singled out.
Yeah.
I don't remember for sure. It was a very complex song.
And it may have actually been on the backing throughout, but it stands out on a couple of moments where you just get the orchestral and that vocal theme.
Yes. And then you also have this progression of the song kind of gradually becoming slower. And I feel like the lyrics also becoming less abstract and more just honing in on an idea as that. So the song feels kind of like this, right?
Yeah.
Like it's just zeroing on that conclusion. You are now fucked.
Yeah.
It's such a coherent progression of the whole thing. I think we should stop.
Are we done here?
No.
So if you enjoyed this reaction, we'd greatly appreciate the likes and shares. And if you want to see more, don't forget to subscribe with bells on.
Thank you very much for stopping by. We hope you enjoyed your stay, and we'd love to see you back at the Windmill very soon. Corpse is out.